Welcome, welcome, and hello to all of my new subscribers. I'm so delighted that you're here. This is a channel that you can turn to every month for human design transit reports that help you to understand what's going on with the planets from a human design as well as an astrological point of view. And also, this is your home base for all of your in-depth training about human design. So we're going to go into the June Human Design Transit Report in this video, and we've got some really beautiful themes that are coming up. You may be feeling how much things are speeding up right now, and they're just going to get faster. So let's go ahead and dive into the specifics. So the sun is in Gemini right now, and here in the Northern Hemisphere, the days are getting longer and longer, and you can feel the speed of the energy barreling towards the summer solstice. And I'll talk a little bit about the solstice a little bit later in this video. But Gemini, of course, is it's mercurial, right? Ruled by Mercury. So we've got a lot of mercurial energy, a lot of times a lot of mental activity. But Gemini is also a bit of a magician and a shapeshifter and loves magic. And so we're in this kind of really beautiful mercurial time where things can be mutable, can be changing. Of course, Gemini is a mutable sign. And so this is a wonderful time for you to be seeing like, what needs to get stirred up? What needs to be elevated? Can I move things around so that they're going to be better suited to where I am now? So here in this image, you can see the gates that the sun and the earth are lighting up. We do not have a super concentration in a particular center like we do some months of the year. We do have a little bit more focusing here on the throat, as you can see, but it's not that we have it in really concentrating in one center. Here are the specific gates. You're welcome to take a screenshot of this for yourself so that you can be tracking what's happening with the sun and the earth in relation to your own chart. Now, in my human design transit reports now, we're focusing a lot more on the outer planets, simply because the outer planets, there's so much really powerful and important alignments that are happening in the outer planets. And often in human design transit reports, we don't pay that much attention to them. And yet it's so, so vital, and especially now. In this next image, you can see these are all of the different gates that are being lit up both by the sun and the earth, which change every 5 to 6 days, right? They're changing constantly. And then the outer planets move more slowly. But if you take a look at this particular image, you'll see these are all the different gates that are being lit up either by the sun or the earth or by all of the other planets. And what you can do, what I recommend is that you look for these are all hanging gates, actually. Hanging gates are when you have just one gate is lit up and its mate is not. So you can take a look at this image here and see this illustration. This is from one of my ebooks that it shows you about what hanging gates are. We all have them in our charts. And for us with the transits, very often, most of the time, actually, what we're looking at is hanging gates. Now, the thing that's important to understand about hanging gates is that your hanging gate is always seeking its mate. So that when you have a hanging gate that's in your chart that is going to be met by one of the gates that's being lit up by the transits, you're going to have a complete channel. Let me just show you what this looks like with my particular chart. So what you see here with the black, that is all the gates that are being lit up by any of the planets during the course of this month of June. Then what you see in red are my particular gates that are hanging gates that are going to be meeting them. So for example, we've got the 45 coming off the throat here that is going to be lit up, I believe, by the sun later in the month. But then I have the 25 that's coming off the will center. So that's going to create a complete channel for me, and it's going to define my will center. We've also got Neptune in the 25 that's coming off that G center. It's going to meet my gate 51, which is on the will center. That's going to create a complete channel. And then for me, my will center is going to be defined. So for me, there are 3 different centers that are defined by these transits over the course of the month. I'm going to have my throat center defined, which is usually open. My will center, which is usually open, is going to be defined. And also my emotional solar plexus. So that's a lot, right? That's a lot of extra definition that I'm going to get. So if you don't really know what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go and get a video that I created called Understanding the Human Design Transits. And this is totally free to you. The link to go and get access for it is down in the description. And you can see here, these are the different topics that we're going to be covered in this particular video. What are the transits? How do they relate to astrology? Why does it matter to you? How are you going to relate the transits to your chart? What is it that's going on in your life that's going to make these important, and so on. So this is about a half-hour video. It's just my gift to you. And when you do this, you'll also be on a priority list to find out about when we release our self-study program, which is in the works right now, about how to be using the transits for yourself. So I'm excited to be bringing this to you soon. But this is just an example that I went through here with you, where you can look at the gates that are being lit up by the transits, and then you look at what's happening in your chart, and you kind of put them together, and you're like, wow, what is the extra definition that I particularly get when this is happening? And this will really help you to be able to make the most of the transits, to know when you're going to have extra energy. Like for me, I have 3 extra centers lit up during the course of this month. That's a lot of extra energy for me. And I want to know what that energy is and how I'm going to maximize it for myself, right? And that's the benefit that you can have when you're looking at this in relation to your own chart every month. So let's check in on probably the biggest major alignment that we've got going right now that has changed from a human design point of view, which is that Neptune and Saturn have now moved into Aries, and they're both in the gate 25. And the gate 25 is the love of spirit, or simply spirit. It's in individual circuitry, and it is in the centering circuit. So let's break this down for a little bit. So individual circuitry is here to be different. It's here to bring change. It's doesn't fit in, and it's where the evolutionary impulse of humanity runs through the human design chart. And so individual circuitry is very much about the individual evolutionary process, and how that individual evolutionary process really sparks and initiates evolutionary processes in the tribe and in the collective. And this is in the centering circuit, which is one of the small circuits in the human design chart. And it's really kind of this energy for, hey, who this individual is getting really involved with whatever it is they're interested in. It becomes very magnetic. It draws people in. It has a kind of aura busting quality that can be very magnetic to other people. So when we've got gates in that centering circuit lit up, that can be really magnetic. And in this case, we've got, like I said, these 2 major outer planets are lining up that gate 25, which is coming off of the G center. And then it is going to meet that gate 51 in my chart, right? As I showed a minute ago, right? I've got that gate 51, and that's going to complete for me that whole channel of the priest or the priestess or the shaman. But whether you've got the gate 51 lit up or not on your chart, this is still a major alignment. And so this is also, they've moved into Aries. So the 25 actually is both in Pisces and in Aries. So Neptune's been in the 25 for a long time. It just moved into Aries at the end of March. And then Saturn just moved in just a few days ago, actually, on the 24th, I believe, of May. And so they're going to be doing a dance in Aries for the next couple of months. Then they're going to retrograde back into Pisces at different speeds, because they're moving at different speeds. Neptune's going to stay in the 25 this whole time, but it is going to go back into Pisces for a while. Saturn is going to go back into the 36, which doesn't make somebody like me very happy, but that's another story, right? And then they're going to come around and both come back into Aries early next year, and they're going to have an exact conjunction in the actually gate 25 in the 3rd line, January 15th to 23rd in 2026. So this is what we've got going on. There's this whole cycle that's happening for this year. And then as we move into 2026, then they'll separate, because Saturn's going to move faster, right? And Neptune's going to move slower. So Saturn will move it behind. And then they'll have a little bit of separate journeys and separate missions once that happens. But right now they're really doing this dance with each other and with us right here at the end of Pisces, where we're ending eras, right? We're ending the astrological cycle, right, with Pisces at the very end, and we're beginning a new cycle. And we've got both of these right now at the very beginning of Aries, which is the creator degree. So the thing I really want to emphasize for you here is that this is a stepping into our personal sovereignty in a big, big way, because Aries is the sovereign sign along with Leo, but even more with Aries, because Aries initiates the zodiac, right? It's the very beginning of a whole new cycle for the astrological wheel, for you and for me and for our whole world. Because I know, listening to some of the astrologers, they're like, we've never seen these two together at the creator degree in Aries. They come together every 36 years, I think it is, but not at the 0 degree of Aries, which, and the Sabian symbol of that is a woman meeting a seal coming out of the ocean. Okay. So here, the woman and the seal, they're coming out of Pisces. They're coming out of this watery, unconscious, could potentially be addictive illusion, fantasy, right? It's all a little bit of the shadow aspect of Pisces, right? But wanting to bring with that, the joy and the expansion and the love and the kind of really deep sense of dream time and imagination that Pisces has, and bring that in, and let's give it some feet with Aries here, right? So, because Aries is like, okay, let's get going. So it gives us this energy for bringing our dreams more and more into reality. Now, of course, this is going to take some time, right? It's not going to just happen between now and the next time. And so this is what we're really working with for this next year while Neptune and Saturn are doing this dance, because also Neptune dissolves and Saturn creates structure, right? Neptune is expansive. Saturn is contractive. They're really kind of opposite types of energies. And so if we're going to have a certain kind of creative tension while these two planets are dancing with each other, and they're also dancing with Aries and with Pisces. So it's a complex dynamic. It's really potent. And the thing for you to be latching on to here is this is happening in the gate 25 for the most part. So the gate 25 is that love of spirit. And so if you just step back and take a look at this, the big question for you and for all of us is, how connected are we to our own sovereign self inside, our divine self, our higher self, right? The light being that is us, that is having a human experience, that is animating this beautiful human form that each one of us has, right? Like, what is your relationship with of that, right? What do you need to dissolve of that? What can you keep of the beautiful, really spiritual energy of Neptune? Because Neptune is one of our main spiritual themes. What can you keep of that? But then what can you dissolve? Right? Are there aspects of, like, if you were brought up with a certain religious background, or if you were brought up with a certain atheistic background, right? What of that do you need to dissolve so you can actually get into a more vertical relationship with your spirit self and be bringing that energy and that light of that expanded part of yourself more and more into your human form and more into the planet, and anchoring it down into the ley lives of the planet, right? This is a big transformational process that we're all in right now. And Neptune and Saturn are guiding us through that. So a few recommendations for you around this. This is a really good time for you to be journaling or drawing or painting or collaging or just creating with your right brain. Okay. So the right brain is going to be more associated with Pisces and with Neptune, right? Because it's more expansive. It's more dreamlike. It's the unconscious, right? It's our connection to spirit. So we want to be accessing that part. But then when we're writing or drawing or painting or collaging, using our hands in some way, I mean, you could do this with your garden also. You could be creating, with earth. You could go out and create earth art as well. Right? You could do that with flowers and leaves and sticks and stones and all that kind of thing, right? Very Andy Goldsworth of you. You could be doing any of that because it's bringing things into form. And my suggestion is, don't be too attached to the forms that you start to create right now. Allow yourself to experiment and be practicing that transformational manifestation process where you're accessing what is in the unseen and the unknown and the light realms, if you will, the energy realms. And then practice bringing it into form, right? Without a lot of attachment, without a lot of risk involved, because practicing that, bringing things into form, is really what we're being given the opportunity to practice right now, as a way to create a foundation for us for this new era that we are moving into. I mean, Neptune's going to be in Aries for 14 years, right? So we're going to be having this going on for a long time. So right now we're being given the opportunity to really practice manifestation. Let's look at some specifics that are happening this month. So right here at the very beginning of the month, Jupiter is going to move into the gate 15, and it's going to be here for most of the month until the very end of the month. And Jupiter is going to move from Gemini into Cancer, which is what the astrologers are really looking at. And that's going to happen on June 9th. And then towards the end of the month, Jupiter is going to move into the gate 52. And I'll be talking more about that in videos that are going to come out later in the month. But let's just focus here on Jupiter moving into that gate 15. So this is a really beautiful alignment, and it's really good news for all of us. Jupiter moving into the 15. So the gate 15 is known as extremes in traditional human design, or compassion in quantum human design. It's often known as the love of humanity. I think part of the reason it's known as extremes is that, after all, here we are, we're at the extremes of the year, right? We're coming to the solstices, and the solstices are extremes. And people who have the 15 defined in their chart sometimes have a kind of erratic schedule. And so if that's you, just know that that is part of the character of the gate 15. But the gate 15, I think, in its more empowering and awakening aspect, really has to do with compassion. It has to do with the opening of the heart center, has to do with us breaking down the barriers that we have, the old stories that pit us against each other, that say, hey, we are a common humanity. We are common people. And not only that, we live in a beautiful living world that is also full of sentient beings, and that we want to have compassion and awareness for all of the sentient beings, as well as for our fellow and our sister human beings, right? That this is what we're really evolving into, is the state of more of heart coherence, of more love, of more compassion, of living more and more from that heart center and less from the mind. And it's kind of interesting because Jupiter in Gemini, right? Gemini is very mental, right? Like I said at the beginning, right? Very mental, lots of mental activity. And so Jupiter has been expanding our mental activity and our busyness, but also our magic for the while that Jupiter was in Gemini, which is usually stays in for a sign for a year. So we're going to be moving out of this, right? Here on the 9th of June into Cancer. So from an astrological point of view, we're moving from this really mutable sign, and things are very mental and jumping around and like that, very like kind of magical, to Cancer, which is a cardinal sign, right? Which is a place where we're like, okay, we're at a new beginning. We're starting a new phase. And so we're moving into Cancer, which is so much about compassion, right? And so Cancer is caring, Cancer is loving, Cancer is the home, Cancer is family. And so it totally makes sense that Jupiter would be in this gate 15. Now, of course, the 15, again, is one of those gates that straddles the Gemini and Cancer. And so, but Jupiter's moving into Cancer. It's going to be in that 15 for the next few weeks. And so this is a really wonderful time for you to be working with your own heart center and with your compassion. And my suggestion for you is to really kind of take a look at either places in yourself, places in the people in your life, places in the world outside where you've been in a state of judgment, where you've been in a state of, that like this is bad and this is wrong, in a way where you're really, 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 being very moralistic, potentially dogmatic. Unfortunately, in our world today, there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of energy going into polarization, conflict energy, war energy, and so on. So what we want to be able to do is to step out of all of that conflict and war energy, even if you think you're right in a situation, right? And to be able to step back and have more compassion. This doesn't mean that you let dangerous people into your heart. I'm not talking about that. Compassion doesn't mean that. Compassion means that you try to be in a place where you're like, that's really hard for that person. That I see that that's going on for them, but it doesn't mean you go there. It doesn't mean that you jump into their victim consciousness or you jump into their trauma or something like that. It means you hold space and recognize that they are a sovereign, vibrant, alive being, even if they're feeling incredibly challenged at the moment, and hold that space for them to get more connected into their hearts. And if all you see is chaos and mishigas, you can certainly keep your energetic distance from it, but try to, as much as you can, to be in that state of compassion rather than in a state of judgment. Because what does judgment do? It separates us. It hierarchizes us. It says some people are okay and other people's are not. And this is exactly what we need to be evolving out of. On Wednesday, June 11th, kind of midday here on the Pacific coast, we're going to have a full moon in Sagittarius in the gate 26. So Sagittarius, let's remember Sagittarius is fiery and Sagittarius is really visionary, really big, ruled by Jupiter, right? We're just talking about Jupiter. So expansive and potentially benevolent and definitely pretty evolutionary and forward, fast, moving things forward, right? And so we've got this is happening in the gate 26. So the gate 26 is on the will center. It's right over here, and it is in tribal circuitry, and it is in the commerce circuit or the community circuit of tribal circuitry. And it's known in traditional human design as the trickster, or the gate of sales. It's also called that, and it's been renamed integrity in the quantum human design. And the thing I want to say about it is that this is a very enrolling energy. People who have this defined in their chart tend to be natural promoters. You know, they're really good at enrolling people in things. So this can be sales. It can be, if you're actually in a sales position, but it can also be just enrolling people into a project, into ideas, into a certain way of seeing things, right? It can be, it's really about being able to offer up a point of view and invite other people to share that point of view with you. And that can be something where there's some kind of monetary exchange or just an energy exchange that's happening. But I know like people who have this in their chart, for example, sometimes they lead teams, right? And then they need to enroll their teams, have to get buy-in from their teams in terms of the work that they're doing. So this can be expressed in many, many different places. And it's one of those things, I think the reason it's trickster, right, is that this can fall into the shadow aspect pretty easily. We kind of think of this as the used car salesman energy, right? Where you're trying to trick people, not being in integrity, right? Not being in integrity, trying to trick people and trying to, slough off something to them that doesn't really have value. And then you receive way more value back, right? That's manipulative. That's coercive. That is what I define as really a shadow expression. Then some people have the lower expression of it, which I think of as the disempowered expression, where they're like, ooh, I don't like sales. I don't like manipulation. Sometimes people have been really, burned by buying things that really don't work or that break right away or don't live up to the promise that they offered, whatever that particular thing is, right? And then they have this kind of like, ooh, I don't want to be enrolled into anything. I don't want to sell anything. And then they have this big wall, and that makes it hard to actually engage with life, right? Because we like to be, invited into things and we like to participate, right? And then that really awakened state is where you're in this kind of sense of joie de vivre and aliveness and excitement. And this is on a motor, right? And so this is also where willpower is and worthiness and value. So you can bring all of that up. And then from that state, you can be inviting other people to check out whatever it is that you're doing. So here, this is a full moon, right? So the full moon is an apex, right? It's when the sun is at its highest in terms of it's beaming on the moon in a way that we can see. And very often things that have been in shadow are illuminated. So this is a really good time to be looking at, have I been out of integrity about how I've been trying to enroll people in my life. I mean, if you are have your own business, or if you're in a sales position, have you been out of integrity in the way you've been, inviting people to work with you? Or have you been experiencing that from other people? And what is that like? And how can you navigate that and heal whatever you need to do there, right? You want to be looking at always being in the highest integrity that you can. And you may be finding that certain ways that either you or the people around you have not been integrity might be being revealed during this time. Then another alignment, which is pretty big in the human design world, is that the nodes of the moon are going to be changing gates. Now, they're going to stay in the same astrological sign. They're still going to be on the Pisces Virgo axis for quite a while. I think it's another year. So they're not changing their astrological sign, but inside of those signs, they're changing gates. And for me, it's kind of like a big, at least for a little while. Because the North Node has been in the gate 36, which is the gate of crisis, right? And exploration. And we've had that gate 36 lit up so much. And actually, Saturn's going to retrograde back into the gate 36. We really, really had a lot of energy in that gate 36. And it is, it's potentially a pretty intense energy. And the nodes have been lighting it up for quite a while. We've had a bunch of different planets moving into 36. So, because it's at the end of Pisces, right? And we've had all of these different planets that have been going through Pisces and Aries and back and so on. So I experienced the 36 as it's one of those like really challenging energies because it does have that potential for crisis. But if you can turn that sense of crisis into exploration, which is what it's been renamed in quantum human design, and also to recognize that the 36 does have potential for breaking patterns of the past. And I think this is the way that the 36 has been really helping us, is breaking those patterns of the past. And if we think about that 36 being in Pisces, right? Again, Pisces dissolving, right? Dissolving. So we're dissolving patterns of the past. And we've been in that. And there's other things that are going to continue to do that. Certainly as I was saying earlier, with Neptune and Saturn going back and forth, through till the early part of next year, right? We're still going to be having that going on. But for me to have the North Node move into the gate 22, I'm like, whew, okay. Because that 36 is kind of intense. So it's just moving over into the gate 22, which is also in the emotional solar plexus, but the 22 is in the knowing circuit. And the gate 22 is this really beautiful energy. It's called surrender in quantum human design. And it really is this kind of like, let's just surrender to spirit, knowing that we are provided for, that we are protected, that spirit has our back, right? Knowing all of those things, just surrendering the ego self, surrendering the part that wants to be in control all the time, and allowing and inviting that more light being self, that more spirit sovereign self to come in and be more active in your energy field, in your mental state, in your emotional state, in your physical body, right? Bringing all of that in and just surrendering to that aspect of who you are. Because also remember, Pisces is very spiritual as well. And it's very much about our dream time and our ability to activate and utilize our imaginations. So that to me is going to be a really welcome shift. Then also the South Node has been in the gate 6, and the gate 6 is also really tricky. It's known as friction in traditional human design and impact in quantum human design. And so it's been a pretty challenge. That 36 is a pretty challenging axis that we've been working on. And so it's moving into the gate 47, which is a beautiful energy about being able to receive downloads from superconsciousness through your right brain. So it's in the sensing circuit, and it is all about us being able to bring in those leading edge ideas and how, but they're very much, they're experiential, they're creative, they're embodied, they're expansive, right? They're all of that because it's right-brained energy. And so we're going to be opening that up, and that's going to, again, give us just a little bit of a break from that pretty intense 6 energy, which is very impactful, and it can be friction. And so we've got so much conflict energy out in the collective right now. The last thing we needed was for that to be lit up. But it's also appropriate because the South Node is what we brought in with us, right? It's what we still have that we are processing through in this life from earlier lives. And conflict and friction, yes, absolutely. That is part collectively, certainly. And then the North Node is what we're moving into, right? It's our destiny, if you will. It's kind of like our destiny purpose. And so collectively, we're all moving into this surrender, right? Really allowing spirit to take over in our lives and to guide us. And that's what we're moving into. So I feel like this shift of the nodes is going to be really, really supportive and auspicious for us. And remember that the nodes are kind of like this background frequency that is always kind of just humming these energies and asking us, how are you experiencing them? How are you experiencing them? And of course, it happens for us individually, but in this case, we're looking at it really what's happening for the collective. Then let's just speak briefly about what's going on later in the month. Of course, we're going to move into Cancer on June 21st. And Cancer, let's remember, is ruled by the moon. And like I said, Cancer is emotional and sensitive and so much about relationships and family and home and caring and healing and all of that. It's a beautiful healing energy that we're going to be moving into as we move into Cancer season. And right on that cusp, okay, of Gemini and Cancer, we're going to have the solstice. So the June solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere is the summer solstice, right? And of course, it's the winter solstice in the Southern Hemisphere. And it's a time of extremes, right? The solstice is in the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to have the longest day and the shortest night, and the opposite in the South. We have the longest night and the shortest day. And this is happening in the gate 15. So we talked about the gate 15 a little bit earlier about Jupiter moving into the gate 15, which is that gate of compassion. But here, right here, as we're moving from Gemini into Cancer, right here at the solstice, the sun is moving into the gate 15 and the earth is in the gate 10, which is the love of self. So here we're being asked to ground ourselves in self-love, really loving ourselves, respecting ourselves, appreciating ourselves, acknowledging ourselves, loving ourselves, right? Really grounding ourselves in this very kind of personal relationship with self so that we can then become more compassionate, shine that compassion out into the world, because the sun is what we're shining out into the world, right? So you do want to look at where these are in your chart. I mentioned that earlier on, right? And to see, like for me, I have the gate 10 already defined in my chart, but not the gate 15. So for me, the bigger influence during this transit is going to be that gate 15. But I also have the opportunity to uplift my relationship with my self-love while that earth is there as well, just because those are really potent energies. And if you want to change the way you're experiencing your relationship to any of the gates when the sun or the earth are in them, that's a really good time to do it. But anyway, so this is the solstice, and this is just, we're going to come back. I'll do another video about the solstice altogether when we get later in the month. But I wanted to just highlight that we're moving into this really beautiful, compassionate energy. So Jupiter is going to start that. Then the sun is going to come in for these 5 or 6 days right around the solstice. And so just for you to be getting yourself ready, to be kind of looking at, on the inside, where can I be more compassionate? Where can I be more compassionate with myself, with other people, with things that are happening in the world? Because compassion is a very, very high frequency soul quality. And the more that you can move into compassion and step out of judgment, the higher frequency you're going to have, the less you're going to be influenced by negative things that are going on around you, the more you're going to open up your channel to be receiving that inner guidance that wants to come through you during this time. We actually have the vessel of love, which is lit up during this particular transit as well. So just know that this is going to be a really potent time that's going to be happening around the solstice. And then I noticed something when I was pulling the chart for the solstice, and I wanted to just show this to you. I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper study about this, but this is just something that has come up for me. So with this image, what you'll see is where the planets all were at the moment of the solstice, right? That's the same configuration of what you saw in the previous chart, okay, for the solstice. But for this one, I left in the what we call the unconscious side or the body side or the design side, the red numbers, which are approximately 88 days prior. So it's not exactly a 90-degree angle, but it's really close. And I went backwards and I noticed that this is almost not exactly the same because some things have changed. But certainly the outer planets and the sun and earth are all in the same configuration as they were during the March equinox, which totally makes sense, right? Because these are quarters of the year. I don't know why it never occurred to me before, but it just did. And I was like, gosh, we've got something happening between the equinoxes and the solstices and the quarters of the year and the incarnation crosses. And that I have never explored and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do a deeper study on that, but I'm just going to offer this to you in case you want to just be noodling around with it and thinking about it for yourself, is to go back to where were you in the March equinox? How were those planets and those configurations and alignments influencing you back then? Because that's kind of a seed point for where you are now, right? It's not the same kind of seed point as when you were gestating in your mama's womb and then you were born, right? Which is where the black numbers are, right? But it's interesting that those red numbers, that equinox is a seed point for what's going to happen in the solstice. And then what will happen is what we've got here with the solstice will be a seed point for the fall equinox. So we'll follow it around the year. So stay tuned about that one. Then at the very end of the month, we're going to have a new moon in Cancer. It's going to happen in the gate 52. That's going to be happening on June 25th. And the 52 is a really interesting energy about perspective. That's what I always think of it as, like being able to see the big picture, but then also being able to focus, being able to see the big picture and being able to focus. So we'll come back to this in a longer video later in the month, but I wanted to just show this to you in case you want to add it into your journal now. And then let's just tune in to the great outer planets that we haven't talked about yet. So Uranus and Pluto. Just to say, Uranus is still in that gate 8. Uranus is going to be in that gate 8 until the 10th of July, when it's going to move into the gate 20. And Uranus is going to move into Gemini on July 7th. And so this is going to be a big change for all of us because Uranus is in any of the astrological signs for years. I'll have to find out how many it is, but it's a long time. And so it's been in Taurus, right? And Uranus has been at the final degree of Taurus for a long time, which is part of, what we're seeing in terms of, earth movements, literally earth movements like earthquakes and volcanoes, because, of course, Uranus is the god of awakening and often sudden change, often electrical change. A lot of the solar storms that we're seeing, right? All of this is related to Uranus being in Taurus. Taurus has to do with the earth and things that are happening with the earth. Right. And so now moving into Gemini, things are going to get really, really fast. We've got Jupiter leaving Gemini. We've got Uranus moving in. And so Uranus is going to be really, really fast. We're going to have a lot of changes that are going to be happening there. So I'll report more on that next month as that's all happening in July. But just so you know that that's coming up. And then Pluto is still in Aquarius, going to be in Aquarius for a long time, right? About 19 years total, and is still in the gate 41. But is currently retrograde. So going to be in the gate 41 through about the middle of August. And then it's going to retrograde back into the gate 60. And so the gate 60 is where Pluto was, for about 3-4 years before it moved into gate 41. And remember that gate 60 is called conservation in quantum human design. I like to think of it as discernment because it's really, again, this is the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius. And is kind of going, okay, what are the mutations, the new leading edge ideas that have come in? what do we want to keep and carry forward with us, right? That's what the gate 60 does. And it says it discerns what we want to carry forward. And then that sends that into the gate 3, which is the gate of innovation. And so we're going to be back into that discernment process through the beginning of December, when Pluto will be back into the gate 41. Pluto is going to be moving direct on October 13th, which means it's going to be stationing there right around that mid-October period. So it's going to get stronger and stronger and stronger during that time as Pluto in that gate 60 in Aquarius. So we should be looking at seeing what's happening with the intensity of that towards when we come into the fall time. All right, so that is my June transit report for you. As I said, we'll be doing more videos over the course of the month to dive into more specifics, but this is your overview for the month. And I do encourage you to go ahead and register and get that video, Understanding the Human Design Transits. And that will put you on a priority list to hear when we release the self-study program we've been working on. That's going to really kind of lead you through and give you lots of examples about how you can be doing this for yourself. And just to say that understanding the transits has really influenced me and my ability to know when I have more energy for things, when I don't have energy for things, when, if I've been through some major transits, I've had all this energy and then it goes away. I don't go, oh no, what happened? I go, oh no, I need to rest because I realize I just don't have all that extra energy coming to me from the planets. So if you want to know more about what all of this means and how you apply it to your own human design chart, and even beyond that, how you apply it to your life, then go ahead and get this free training for you. And then if you want to, you can go even deeper when we release the Master Your Neutrino Stream program that'll be coming out in June. All right, my friends, many blessings. So much love to you. Bye for now.